So if you're watching this, you've probably seen my old and very controversial take on Starfield. If you haven't, links in the description for context. Now, I've already talked about this in the comment section of that short, explaining / updating my opinions, but there's only one problem. It's a goddamn wall of text. And I don't think anyone really wants to read this monstrosity, so instead I decided to make a video to be a little more consumer friendly. And I also wanted to cover a few things that were brought up in the comment section. Now let's get one thing out of the way that a good chunk of people still missed, and that is this short was made a year ago. This was my opinion after one of the first trailers for Starfield. And so many people were asking, how can I give my review before the game even comes out? And let me clarify, this wasn't a review, it was a first impression of a very limited gameplay trailer. And in my short, I said that the gunplay didn't look that good. And I still stand by that for the said trailer. But granted, it is a little hard to judge because most likely the person playing it has never touched a goddamn controller once in their lives. But I was still a tad bit skeptical all the way up until the Starfield Direct, which showed a lot more gameplay, and I already admitted that the gunplay looked a lot better. I also mentioned that Bethesda wasn't really known for their gunplay mechanics, and this was poorly worded because I was trying to fit my take in the 60-second time window of a short. I was mainly talking about Bethesda's RPGs, since Starfield is an RPG, which I know in of itself will be a controversial take, because I don't think Fallout has insanely impressive shooting mechanics. Now don't get it twisted, I don't think it's bad by any means, just not something to be known for. But instead, I just said Bethesda isn't known for their gunplay mechanics, which a lot of commenters, rightfully so, brought up Wolfenstein and Doom. Now I haven't played Wolfenstein, but I've certainly played the fuck out of Doom, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. So yeah, at face value, this was a pretty dumb take, so I'll definitely take my L on this one like a big boy. I'm a man, I can admit when I'm wrong, I can eat a few L's. But a take that I'm willing to die on a hill for is what I said about Cyberpunk 2077, which to be honest, I was not really anticipating so many dick-riding fanboys ready to white knight defend their game to the death. Hell, it felt like half the comments were just talking about Cyberpunk rather than Starfield. And so many of them were just straw man arguments covering things that I never even said, literally just fighting internal demons. Many just cried about how good of a game it is and I don't know what I'm talking about, but again, I never said Cyberpunk 2077 was bad. I am very aware that both Cyberpunk 2077 and No Man's Sky are in a much better state now than they were on launch. But the point that I was trying to make is that these games had unimaginable expectation on release and came nowhere close to them. They were absolutely devastating flops, and that's just undeniable unless if you like an objectively bad game that didn't work. And yes, like I said, they're in a much better spot now and have regained a certain amount of trust in their communities, but they will carry this reputation and always be used as an example of a game that didn't meet expectations on launch, even if there's an asterisk next to them. Now let me talk about the point that started this whole conversation around Cyberpunk, and that was me saying that games with unimaginable hype tend to fail. And again, this was a poorly worded statement to fit a time crunch. There are tons of games that have unimaginable amounts of hype and still succeed, like Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok. But the point being that there are still tons of games that don't meet that expectation. Fallout 76, Battlefield 2042, Redfall, Anthem, Duke Nukem Forever, Babylon's Fall, etc, etc. But I do acknowledge that this specific part of the take was an overreaching one. Now it's the moment that probably none of you have been waiting for, but one of my favorite comments that I saw was everyone's reaction to the empty rocks in space. And immediately on the surface, it was pretty funny, and I definitely threw you guys a lob, which most of you slammed down like prime fucking LeBron. But a lot of you definitely missed or choose not to care about the point that I was trying to make. I wasn't talking about the realism. Of course, nearly every single goddamn planet is either an empty rock or an empty ball of gas. I think most people know that. But what I was trying to point out was the replayability of it. If every single planet outside the main storyline planets were just empty rocks, it'd be very fucking boring and tedious to keep exploring. Granted, it would be realistic, but completely at the cost of the gameplay. I think I made a very fantastic example in the comment section about this. Imagine if in every FPS, all it took was one bullet to incapacitate your opponent. This would be very realistic, but it would completely destroy the gunplay and the time to kill for mostly every single FPS game. And while this is an extreme example, I think it paints a clear picture of what I was trying to get at. Trust me, I don't think the empty planets outside the main storyline worlds would completely destroy Starfield, but it would definitely be a detriment to the replayability of it, which is why I mentioned No Man's Sky's procedurally generated worlds in my short. And a lot of you thought that I was talking about the main storyline worlds, which to clarify, I wasn't. Actually, these worlds look very detailed, and I'm very interested to play them. Commenters did mention mods as well for the replayability, and I completely agree. I've seen the work of very passionate modding communities, and I think that they will create some amazing things for this game. But the points that I was making really pertains to Starfield itself and my opinions of it. I also got a decent amount of heat for talking about Skyrim's lively world, and yeah, maybe I was looking at it with rose-tinted glasses of nostalgia from my childhood, but I think I'm gonna stand by this take, especially for its time. The last thing I want to quickly talk about is how everyone said that I want to see this game fail. And with all due respect, I don't think this makes any goddamn sense. Because either way, I'm still going to spend my money on this when it drops, so why in the hell would I want to see it fail? I'm not a pussy, I'm willing to have an outdated take, especially if Starfield shapes out to be everything we thought it would be. Because I'd much rather eat my words while playing a potential masterpiece of the decade than be correct and say I told you so while literally burning my money on another AAA piece of shit. As for my current opinions on Starfield, I still have some concerns such as the lock at 30 frames per second or the reportedly invisible walls on certain sectors of planets, even though I don't know how this is implemented in the game, or not having seamless transitions from space to planets just like in No Man's Sky. But needless to say, I've been growing optimistic as time goes on, especially after the Starfield Direct, and I can't wait to see what Starfield is all about. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I would say like and subscribe, but most likely you're not gonna do that. But if you were slightly interested, then maybe you could check out some of my less spicy content. But again, thank you for watching.